Welcome to MCN and Honda's first ever big electric bike. This is the £12,999 WN7. We've been riding it here at its world launch in Malaga. I think it's great, but more about that later on. But the first question we need to ask ourselves is, why have Honda built this bike in the first place? Well, Honda have been making EVs for a long time, mainly cars and scooters. And Honda want EVs to be part of their future, but not at the expense of petrol engines. So bikes like these aren't going to take over, so no one needs to worry about that. But it's going to give people more choice if they want to go down the electric route. And they wanted to branch out. So they make scooters at the moment, but they wanted to make a serious motorbike, basically so they could kind of learn more about what makes an EV tick when it's in kind of a higher performance vehicle, and also to have a bike like this as a bit of a halo bike. So when you're buying the electric scooter, just like any other bike in any manufacturer's range, there's always the big fancy flash bike to aspire to as well. Other question to ask is, why is it called the WN7? So all Hondas, whether it's a CBR or a RCV or whatever, all the letters mean something. And in this case, the W means wind, and the wind is kind of their kind of catchphrase for this bike, really. It's, you know, all about electric bikes. They don't make any noise. They kind of glide through the air like the wind. All their promotional materials got windmills in and stuff like that. So that's the W. The N is naked, and the 7 is kind of where this electric bike fits on their scale of kind of power of bikes. So this is kind of a 7 out of 10 power wise. The scooters are obviously a lot less, but also that kind of gives a little glimpse into the future, that if there's an 8, 9 or 10, Honda may produce much more high performance bikes as well with electric motors. In terms of technology, the WN7 isn't really groundbreaking compared to a lot of other electric bikes, things like live wires and Energicas and Zeros. It's got an electric motor and a battery, a wheel at each end, and it's a motorbike. But we'll go on to what makes this bike a little bit more special later. But it does have a unique selling point, and that is the fact that it can use any of the fast chargers that you'll find at service stations, the ones for cars, to plug in. So number one, that makes it far easier to find somewhere to charge, because the other bikes with their lower grade chargers, it's really hard to find a charger and it takes a long time. But also that it charges this bike up really quick. So you can go from 20% battery to 80% battery in half an hour with a fast charger. And that really makes this bike a lot more practical than a lot of other electric bikes. So let's give you some electric bike stats when it comes to the WN7. So it's got 67 brake horsepower, 78 pound-foot of torque, which is 100 newton meters, which is a lot. And then when it comes to charging, so if you've just got a normal 3-pin socket and you charge it at home, that's going to take you 5.5 hours approximately. So really, that's really for an overnight charge. If you've got one of the home chargers, like a wall-mounted jobby, then it would charge in 2.4 hours. And like I say, with the quick charger, thanks to this having a high voltage battery, a DC battery, you can do it in 30 minutes. Honda claim you can get about an 87-mile range on average out of this bike. And then performance-wise, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 3.9 seconds, which is the same as a CB500 Hornet. 0 to 62 in 4.6 seconds, which is less than a Hornet, so it's quite quick. And it would do 80 mile an hour. We may or may not have seen that on today's ride. It's also got things like, it's got 4-stage regen. Talk about the regen a little bit more. but you've got 0, 1, 2 and 3, and regen, as everybody knows, is when you come off the throttle, the battery will recharge. It's got a reverse, it's got a speed limiter, which is really handy, especially in a lot of urban zones where it's 20 miles an hour and it's really easy to go over the speed limit, and it's really easy to get points on your license, so you can just set that at 20. It's got traction control, and then dynamically, a lot of people would ask if a bike like this is heavy. It's got 217 kilos, so it is quite heavy, but it does carry its weight really well. It's got quite a narrow rear tyre, 150 tyre, so that makes it agile, and it stops really well. These Nissan brake calipers on this are some of the best brakes I've used on a road bike, to be honest. Loads and loads of feel, nothing like the ABS kind of bikes that we've come to know over the past few years. This has got corner and ABS. It's got straight up and down traction control. So yeah, there's a lot of tech there. You've got a full colour dash with Bluetooth connectivity. In terms of kind of character, electric bikes haven't got the character of a petrol engine. They're not as involving, obviously. And to be honest, an electric motor will feel the same in any bike. So the actual kind of motor in this bike doesn't feel any different to anything else. If you've got an engine, obviously you can have a twin, you can have a triple, you can have a 4, you can have different firing orders and everything in between, and every bike's got its own distinct character, whereas this hasn't. This doesn't feel any different to, say, a Livewire Del Mar, for example, which is another great electric bike. So what makes this a Honda? What makes this so special? Well, it's the way it's all put together. It's the attention to detail. So a lot of the Japanese engineers that have worked on this bike, as always with the Japanese engineers, they go around and work on lots of different projects for Honda. You know, you can have somebody working on a Cub 50 1 year, and then 5 years later they might be working on an RCV MotoGP bike. And that's to give all the engineers a great wealth of knowledge. So the engineers that have been putting this bike together have worked on CBRs, they've worked on RCVs, so they know what should make a motorbike tick. And when you just look at this in the flesh, I don't know if pictures would do it justice or the video would do it justice. It's so well made that the finishes are superb. Everything's compact. When you're riding it, it doesn't feel clattery. A lot of electric bikes, because the engine noise doesn't cover the suspension banging or chains flapping, there's none of that. This has got belt drive, so it's very, very, very quiet. The whole bike feels tight. And you know, even things like it's got a frameless chassis. So the battery box and the motor make the chassis. So basically it's got the front end bolted onto the box one end and the swinging on the other end. But not only is it just a box, it's actually got built-in flex and rigidity characteristics like a normal frame. So it's been really, really well thought of. So let's talk about what is good on the WN7. Well, like I say, the build quality, it's so easy to ride. It's a Honda. Size-wise, it's very similar to a CB750, and performance is quite similar to a CB500. But talking of performance, the really surprising thing is when you open the throttle on this bike, it's got 4 rider modes: Sport, Standard, Eco and Rain. And in the top mode, it goes like stink. You would not believe it. You would not think a bike like this accelerates so hard. And although kind of, you know, those stats I gave you earlier don't sound that impressive, the way this bike delivers it, because it's so surprising, because it's a bike that looks like this and it's electric, you wouldn't expect it to be so fast. But because there's no braking acceleration that you would get on a geared petrol engine, where you go from first to second to third, and there's a small gap for almost your body to recover from the acceleration. Like all fast electric bike, the acceleration is relentless. It is stomach churning, and it almost makes you feel sick. It's so fast. So, you know, up to about 60, 70 mile an hour, the acceleration is absolutely fantastic. It's utterly smooth, as we all know. I mean, the mirrors aren't great. This is Honda's first ever bike with bar end mirrors, strangely enough. And there's no bike with bar end mirrors that are as good as normal mirrors. But they're okay, but they don't blur, because the bike so. It is utterly smooth. So the bike's very smooth, it's very easy to ride. The handling is fantastic, it's very well balanced. It's got great grip, it's got Pirelli Diablo Rosso 3 tyres on, so sporty tyres. The brakes, like I say, is fantastic. The suspension works really well, the ride quality. So everything about riding it is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it's not better or worse than a petrol bike, it's just different. So if you hate EVs, then you're not going to get on this. You probably won't be swayed. But if you've got an open mind, or if the way you ride kind of fits in with how an EV works, because we all know that range is limited. You know, the bikes are a little bit heavier, but you know, all bikes are different, aren't they? But you know, I think you'd be very surprised if you rode this bike. And just overall, yeah, it's a feel-good bike, but you haven't got the involvement of the gears and the vibration from the engine. But as it is, you know, it's hard to fault as a motorbike, which kind of brings me on to what don't I like about it. And there's nothing I don't like about it. The way, you know, Honda have got their design brief to produce a bike that's kind of an urban city bike, a bit of a commuter. You can have a little bit of fun on it at weekends. You know, it's not supposed to rival a Fireblade. It's not supposed to rival a street triple or whatever. It kind of is what it is. It does absolutely nothing wrong. Everything works perfectly. It's just so smooth and so easy to ride, like I say. The only thing it doesn't do well is that it won't really change anyone's perception really of an electric bike. So it's not going to sway a petrol head to ride this bike. But that really is a whole other conversation really, you know, EVs versus petrol. In terms of Honda creating an electric bike, the WN7 is fantastic. And that kind of brings me on to the final point, should you buy one? I think, you know, Honda are expecting to sell quite a few of these. I think more and more people are accepting EVs. I think personally that as a town bike, as a 125 equivalent, and I've said before in many tests, I think EVs are better. You know, riding one of these around town, it's just so easy and so smooth, there's no heat. It's just simplicity, and I prefer this over a 125. And I think, you know, if you stretch that usage a little bit more and use it for a few bits of kind of fun riding in and around town as well, it's fantastic. It would be nice to think, and it probably would never happen. I mean, you remember when Tesla first came out with their cars, and there's a model, I'm not very up on cars, and you can still buy it, and it's still available where you've got lifetime free charging. And you know, even on second-hand Teslas, if you find that particular model, you still got free charging. You know, maybe Honda could to give free charging out for a year or whatever. I mean, I have asked them and they didn't seem that keen, but you know, you need something to get people to experiment with an EV and just to see how it might fit into somebody's life. Would I buy one personally? Probably not. You know, I still prefer the character of a petrol engine and the excitement. But as a motorbike riding this today, I thought it was absolutely brilliant and it did absolutely nothing wrong. So that's our road test of the WN7. This is going to be out in dealers in the UK in June 2026. So just a few months time. We're going to have one back in the UK at MCN to do some more tests. We'll do some more durability and mileage tests just to see what it's actually like to live with from a practical sense. Maybe put it up against some of its rivals as well. But in the meantime, I think Honda have done a great job with the WN7. It's a proper Honda. It's not just any other electric bike. It's just got a lot of love and care that's gone into it. And yeah, top marks Honda. Thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again very soon.